I think it's great.
Love in Christ, good morning. Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to be with you, to be with this congregation this morning. When I spoke with Chris, I was like, Chris, I need to come over to your church, and he told me a lot of stuff. So I'm like, yeah, I just want to present, I just want to talk to the church and to share what I've been into for the past years. And the picture you're actually seeing is one of the things I'll be talking about this morning while we go through some Bible passages. And this is a report from the mission work I did last year. So last year, about this time, I was in Nigeria. So I took half semester in person, then half semester back in Nigeria, just to help start up a mission group that would be doing mission in the northern part of Nigeria. And this is some pictures of what we did, which I'll be speaking about this morning. The next video you're about to watch is a 2 minutes play, 2 minutes 7 seconds play, and I'll just plead with you to just watch the next video of what happened in Nigeria. It's just a short clip. The sound is off.
Hold on. Should be. Oh, it looks like.
Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Jesus is very near. Cast your care on Jesus today. Leave your worry and fear. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted, Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted, Calvary. Jesus is very near. Troubled soul, the Savior can see every heartache.
Thank you very much for taking your time to watch these pictures and these short clips with me. That will lead us to what we'll be talking about this morning. My name is Nathaniel Obadiah. I'm from Nigeria. Um, for most of you that might know, Nigeria is actually divided into two sections, the northern part and the southern part. The southern part is 90% Christians, the northern part is 99% Muslims, and that's where I'm from. So my family happens to be the first Christian in my state, and my dad was the first baptized Christian in my state. I know it might look like it was just 30 something years ago, but yeah, he was the first Christian from my state, and to the glory of God. Then he was an elementary school teacher. Then he became a high school teacher, and then finally he decided to quit his teaching job and go to a preaching school. When the first preaching school came to the northern part of Nigeria, which it came to one of the northern states that is actually a 50-50 state, 50% Christians, 50% Muslim. So when the missionaries tried to come in, they came in through that state, the northern part of Nigeria, then moved to the other side. But of this time, you still have in some states one Church of Christ to a whole state. Like in an entire state, you have just one single Church of Christ in the northern part of Nigeria, where it have maybe a population of 10, 15. Sometimes they don't even worship in 2-3 weeks because maybe some people travel for Christmas, travel for one event or the other. You don't have people worshiping for 3 weeks. While I was growing up, saw my dad doing mission work and then all the persecution. Like, I mean, when I was as little as 6, 7, there were several times when we were worshiping in a primary school where people come in and flog. I was never flogged, but I've seen the adults being flogged and chased out of the church building. And it was a devastating situation for us. And where you live in the northern part of Nigeria, where you practically see Christians being persecuted. I remember when my dad, this was the story my dad told me, and he told us, which we got to read also, when he made his first contact with Christianity when he was in elementary school. He went to elementary school at the age of 12. That was when he went to elementary school, at the age of 12. So he came in contact with Christianity through picking a World Bible School material on the floor. He just saw a paper on the floor as an elementary school student trying to force himself his way through to read, decided to pick up this paper and started reading. Someone actually brought it from the southern part of Nigeria and just couldn't keep it, decided to trash it, then he picked it up and started reading. Made contact with someone from Missouri, then they were communicating back and forth. So many years passed. He graduated to his high school. He was in high school when he got his first Bible sent to him. When that Bible arrived in Nigeria, it was bombed at the post office because the parcel was indicated a Bible, and that was burned. So that went into news. So that was why I say we read that too, because a Bible came to Nasarawa State Post Office, then Lower Plateau, and then it was confiscated by the post office and it was burned. Then he graduated, went to preaching school. He was among the best graduating students. Then he got a scholarship to come to the United States. He went to Freed-Hardeman University, where he did a degree in communication and minor in Bible. So then when he was in the States, I mean, it was a big, huge problem for him back in Nigeria, because his dad, my grandfather, he was the chief priest of the biggest temple in the whole of my jurisdiction. So it was expected, we have a culture where the first son always take over as the priest in the temple. So my dad was to be the next priest in that temple. But my dad practiced African traditional worship, he practiced Islam. So Christianity wasn't an acceptable worship in the northern part of Nigeria. You can be an African traditional worshiper and a Muslim, but you cannot be a Christian in the northern part of Nigeria. But he became a Christian when he graduated from Freed-Hardeman. It was a serious concern among his peers in school, amongst the connection he got here in the state, and due to some threat of his life, he was advised to stay here back in the state. But one thing my dad said was, he said, I would prefer to go back to Nigeria where it is dangerous so I can preach to my people so they can accept Christ. And my dad came back to Nigeria right after graduating, and we actually thought that was the worst idea ever, to be honest. Like, when he came back and he was like, hey guys, we all gonna be here. I mean, I'm telling you the truth, we all as a family thought he made the worst decision ever. Who would ever travel to the United States and return back to Nigeria and say he wanna leave when his friends over there want him to come with his family? So, but I never understood until I grew to the age that I am today, that I finally understood the reason why he made such a decision. Finally, in my state, we now have about 25 churches in my state, and then my family moved to Abuja to keep up with the mission work, and we have about 56 churches in Abuja.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the persecution of Christians in the Deep northern part of Nigeria is still high. But one thing we said is, when I graduated from college, because I've graduated 3 times from college already, all with engineering degrees. When I graduated from the last one, I had an accident that actually changed the way I think. I was in the hospital for 5 months. I almost lost my left arm. Like, this is how far my left hand can go. It cannot go this straight. Because I almost lost this left arm to that accident. 5 months into staying in the hospital, I told my dad, I said, I should have been dead in that accident, October 7th, that was 2016, sorry, October 7th, 2016. I was just 2 weeks to become 26 years old. And that was when I had this accident. I could say to a certain level I was already successful in engineering. But here am I, a young boy, just 26 years old, had a serious accident, and God showed his face in every step of that accident. I drove off a bridge with a new car I just bought. I was so glad, happy. As a young man, I just got my own car, and I just drove off a bridge. That car was shattered. I thought that was the end of my life. Everyone around me said, this young man just kept saying, Jesus save me, Jesus save me. That was what they told me. Because I didn't even know what I was saying. And I was rushed to the hospital. The doctor said, that day, the doctor said, we're sorry, Nate, your arm is going to be amputated because I lost the complete flesh down here. Like, you need to see, I lost everything. I had double fracture, one on my elbow, and I had another one here. The only option they had was just amputate the hand. And then through so many consultations, kept me for months. And finally, a young guy, a young medical doctor said he could try. He believed in miracles, he could try, and then he tried. And today I have my arms. And finally, my fingers weren't moving, they were just still. 4 months into that accident, my fingers weren't moving at all. I mean, they were stiff. But finally, these fingers started moving, this started moving. That's a long story to tell in this short period of time. But one thing I said to myself is, God kept you alive for one single purpose, to preach his gospel. I have never heard that anyone had an accident in Nigeria, flew off a bridge, and there was an ambulance and a crane parked right by the side of that bridge. Never heard such a story before. I have never heard where someone had an accident in Nigeria and in less than 2 minutes there was a speed response. I have never heard. So I just believe that was God. One question we asked was, what was an ambulance doing right at the scene of the accident? What was a crane doing right at the scene of the ambulance? I mean, they said they've been there for more than an hour, just parked and resting. And then I had the accident. And then they swing in. A crane was there, picked me out of the ditch, and put me straight into an ambulance, and I was rushed to the hospital. Anyone can explain that was coincidental. I don't believe that. I believe that was God. That's all I believe. And right in the hospital, I told my parents, I want to be a preacher. I want to be a minister. I want to go out and preach the gospel of Christ to the people in the world, most especially the Muslims. They don't like us, they persecute us, they kill us, but I want to be that voice that will go out to them, because I should have been dead October 7th. I don't know why God decided to keep me alive. If the only reason he kept me alive is to preach his gospel, then I told my parents, that's one thing I'm willing to do. My dad was so overwhelmed with joy. He couldn't wait to tell my mom the story. I mean, when my mom heard the story, everyone was happy that Nate has made a decision to become a preacher. Because my dad thought preaching would only end on him in his family, because no one was ready to pick up. Like, you can tell in a country like Nigeria, preaching is not a job anybody would want to go into, because it's just what it is. But finally, I accepted And I said I want to go to a preaching school and become a minister. Then he worked his way for me to go to Freed Hardeman, where he graduated from, got admitted into Freed, and I was to go to Freed in, that was 2019. Then he came to visit his friends, and then they decided for me to come to Harding University. And I got a 100% scholarship, tuition scholarship through the EQUIP program. I felt that was the best blessing ever. Then finally came to the state in 2021 in July, enrolled into Harding University to do a degree in Bible and ministry. So my dad helps to run a small preaching school in Nigeria with about just 10 to 15 students. Sometimes we have just 7 in a whole year coming through the school. The age range is always from 65 to 75. That's the age range that goes to preaching school in Nigeria. Most of our ministers are all retirees. You don't have young people like, I'm 33, about to turn 34, but people feel I'm still too young at my age to get into ministry. So you cannot imagine what happened to those in their 20s. Nobody ever. And what you always hear is nobody gets married to a preacher anyway. So you're ready to be a preacher as a young person, just know you're going to live single for the rest of your life in Nigeria. And that's the true story. So it's a kind of a scary thing to do. But I was like, if that is the part that God has laid for me, I'm ready to walk through that part. And then I came over, started my program in mission, and then the preaching school that my dad helps to run, we need to get that school accredited so the students that graduate should be able to work with the government. So they can serve as teachers in government schools and they will become ministers in that school where they will be working. So to do the accreditation, I need to have a master's so the school could get, because my dad has his doctorate and I need a master's, my mom have a master's, so we can come as a family to get it accredited so we can now have a preaching school. Then I decided to switch my program from ministry, a degree in ministry, to master's in divinity. And that leads me to what I decided to go into. Knowing I'll be here for 6 years, I was like, we all know, for those of you that have traveled out of the country to other African countries, you will tell there's a lot of good stuff here in the States that can keep you. That's the truth. And I said to myself, I don't want to get carried away with the good stuff here. I need to have something that will always take me back home. So I will have a base. So when I graduate, I have something to take me back home to do mission. I'm human. Like when you have the good stuffs, you will never want to leave. But the best thing is create a base for yourself back home so you can have something to always fall back to. And when you graduate, you have something to go back home to do. Just like the decision my dad made. And finally, talked with friends, talked with my dad, talked with people in the southern part of Nigeria, talked to basically the youth. I said, hey guys, we need to start thinking of the northern part of Nigeria. We won't just let the northern part suffer while the southern part flourish. I don't think it's actually a good idea. So then I came up with this plan of Nigerian youths claiming Nigeria for Christ. Then we were working through this for about a year, and I just felt within myself, December of 2022, I said to myself, Nate, this is the best time to go back to Nigeria and start up this group. Like, because everyone have shown interest, this is the time to do it. Though just about a month to get into school, I'm like, if it means for me to suspend a semester and go back and get this group started, I will do it. But finally spoke to the department. They were like, yeah, you can start taking your classes and go back home and take your classes online. I'm like, perfect. Then that was what I started. A month into school, returned back to Nigeria, started taking all my classes online. I thought this group wasn't going to be possible. I thought this was a field project. But because that's all I kept hearing. Funding wasn't there. I was even scared to talk to people because this is something that I've never done before. So I don't know how it's going to go. But trusting in God, came up with a budget, working with my budget, 5 days for me to fly out of the country. I was having just $2,000 that I saved from my job. This is a project that we were looking up to 15,000 US. What was I having in my account 5 days to travel? Just 2,000. And I was like, if 2,000 is going to get the job started, I'm going to do it. Then the family just put a call to me. No, they sent me a text. Hey, Nate, when you going back to Nigeria, let us know. And I'm like, I'm flying out on Friday. So I replied, I'm flying out of the state on Friday. They were like, can we have coffee? I said, sure, we can do that. They said, tomorrow, that's Monday. I said, yeah, sure. Then we met on Monday, had coffee. So what's the plan? I told them what the plan is. I never told them I had financial issues. I just told them what the plan is because you don't expect anybody to give you finances just 4 days to your trip. That doesn't work. I don't know how that's going to work. Right before we left, they kept asking, Nate, is there something you want us to help with? And I'm like, Nate, just speak out, man. Speak out. I'm like, yeah, okay, yes, I have a problem. And I told them what the problem was. And they were like, finance? I said, yeah. They said, we're going to take care of it. And I was like, we're talking about thousands. They said, yeah, just get us connected. We're going to take care of it. Send your account to us. We're going to send that money into your account before you fly out on Friday. And I was like, this is miracle. This is God. So what you just watched, that wasn't from my bank account. And then I was like, I don't want this huge amount to come to my account. I want it to go to a church. What church am I going to talk to? I just pick up a call one of my dad's friends in West Chicago. I was like, hey team, I have a standing need. I have a family that's ready to sponsor my mission work. But I need them to send this money to an account. They requested from my bank account. But I want this money to go to a church. If your eldership will accept to steward these funds, I will be so glad. And I mean, without him saying, oh, I need to get back to my eldership, he said, Nate, I know your dad, I know you, I've met you in person. The elders will be willing to steward your fund. Give them the church address. And I was like, this is God. And I just texted the family. Church finally accepted to steward my fund just today. If you can send this money to the church in West Chicago, that's perfect. And that money was sent to West Chicago. This same family made contact with other friends, and the whole trip and the financing was paid off. You cannot tell me that wasn't God. You cannot tell me God doesn't see to our needs. It might look difficult. It might look discouraging. I told Chris, I said, Chris, I can't believe this. This money has been paid just right before I traveled. That's amazing. That's the God we serve. He knows your need. He knows what you want. Even at the most discouraging time, He just needs you to hold on to Him. And that's why the topic of today's preaching is hold on to God with an unshaking hand, unchanging hand. He knows your need. He knows what you want at the most difficult time. He is watching you through it. All He's saying is, I'm confident in this child of mine because he trusts me. I could say that because I've seen God done those things even at the time when we never expected Him to show up. Even at a time when people were like, I remember so many calls. So Nick, what's the plan? I'm like, just hang in there. Something is definitely going to show up. My former roommate Chase, he's been my best friend for a long time. He was supposed to be here. I remember he was in the picture of the preparation period. He was like, Nate, I don't think this is going to work because there's no funding anywhere. I'm like, yeah, I'm just trusting in God. Then because when he left the Air Force, he became a Jewish Christian. And as of that time, he was still a Jewish Christian. But today, to the glory of God, he's a Christian now. He got baptized about sometimes early this year. He was supposed to be here this morning with us. But I believe due to some communication gap, maybe should worship at college this morning. But I'm telling you that at a point where so many things thought this wasn't going to happen. And what was the motivation behind this? I said if the Muslims in Nigeria are ready to kill Christians, we are willing to go back to them to show them the love of Christ. And that was what we did. We brought 100 youths for 7 days to go to 5 villages to do a benevolence evangelism. And I told them this. I said, hey, I need to be honest. Wherever we take into this community, because we took food, we took clothes, like just you watching the videos, and we took medical assistance. And we did a door-to-door evangelism. We weren't preaching, or we didn't come to preach Jesus of the Bible to you. No, we had a pamphlet reading the life of Jesus. We shared those pamphlets to them. We said, this is the same Jesus that is written in your Quran. Because you have Jesus of Nazareth that died and is right now at the right-hand side of God written in the Quran. And that's the same Jesus that we are here to present to you. And they took that gladly from us. And at the end of the day, we had 8 baptisms. I told them on the first day, we are not expecting baptism at all. We are just to go out to the field, share the love of Christ, and just tell them about Jesus. Just sow the seed. Don't feel bad at all if we don't baptize after the end of this program, because that's not the target. But I believe God had a different plan. We were planning, he had his own plan separate. On the first day, we had 2 baptisms. Every other day, we kept having one baptism. And we end up having 8 baptisms at the end of this program. We shared food and clothes to 750 families. We gave medical assistance to 48 individuals, including children. I mean, my heart was blown. I was overwhelmed with joy, because this was a project that I thought it was going to be a failed project. But I kept hanging on God. I kept believing and trusting in God. And he made it happen. And this morning, God just wants us to understand that he is always there for us in our deepest need. At the time at which we need him the most, he always shows up. And I'm so glad to announce to you all this morning that after a year after this program, came back to the States, I was able to continue with my classes, and I decided to talk to some of my friends. Hey guys, let's come together, pick interest, let's go to Nigeria and do mission work, because if these youths are able to see other younger people like them having interest in mission, it will help to reboost that feelings of we not alone. And finally, I got 4 of my friends that will be flying to Nigeria with me on the 6th of May. We'll be going back to Nigeria to spend 3 weeks to do mission in Nigeria. 3 of which are Harding students. 1 is not a Harding student. 1, she's a mom to one of the lady, Helena, that will be going to Nigeria with us. And Helena and Michael is our fiancé. They will be going with us. Chase Williams is my roommate, my former roommate. He's one of those that will be going to Nigeria with us on the 6th of May. And we're so excited to host 150 youths coming together to do mission work in the northern part of Nigeria, in 5 villages, 98% Muslims. We just go in there to share this love of Christ to them. If you're so conversant with the news, you will get to know on the 25th, on Christmas Eve, there was an attack in Nigeria where the targeted people were Christians. The Muslims attacked Christians on Christmas Eve. They killed over 100 Christians. I just wanted to know, these persecutions are real. It's all over the news. Christmas Eve. While we were celebrating Christmas, some people were mourning because they all came back as a family to celebrate Christmas, and these Muslims decided to launch an attack. So when we asked them, why do you still want to extend the love of Christ to them? They're actually doing this because they don't even know Christ. When terrorists know Christ, they will stop the terrorist act. But because they lack the knowledge of Christ, that's why they keep doing what they're doing. And that's why we've taken it upon us to go back to preach this love of Christ to them, tell them about Christ, give them good gifts from Christ, most especially at a time like this in Nigeria where inflation is on the rise. People are suffering. We felt this is the right time to actually take this love of Christ back to them, back to the Muslim community. And I'll tell you this blew off my mind in September. One of the community leaders in one of those 5 villages where we preach, and I keep saying this, it's amazing to me because it's a 98% Muslim community, decided to donate a land to us because he said no one has ever come to their community to give them such benevolence. And he decided to contact the group back in Nigeria and told them he's donating the land to the group. And I told them when they told me this, I said, you need to talk to him. Whatever land he's donating to this group, we are going to build a church on that land. Because that's what we're out for. So they went back and had a conversation with him. If the community will allow us to build a church on that land. And he said yes. They spoke to the community leaders and they gave us the permission to build a church on the donated land. So while we'll be going back to Nigeria, we're trying to raise funds for our mission work, which will cost about 15,000 US. And then we're trying to raise funds to build a church, which will cost about 20,000 US. And finally, I decided to West Chicago helped last year. We need a church that would assist us all through, because if this program could stand last year, it could stand the test of time. Then I spoke to Highway Church of Christ, and the eldership of Highway Church of Christ 2 weeks ago accepted to steward the fund. So every fund for this mission work will be sent to Highway Church of Christ. And Highway Church of Christ will be, the eldership will be in charge of managing the funds for this mission work. And that is what we're looking up to by the grace of God. Even though we don't have the funding right now, we just have one check to receive by Highway Church of Christ, but we still believe that this mission work is still going to work. And one thing I always say is, mission work is not a me thing. It is always a we thing. And that's one thing I have hold firm to. That's one thing I'm trusting in God for. And when I spoke with Chris, and he told me about what the congregation here is going through, most especially financing, with finance, I said the most important support this group can ever get is your prayers. We need your prayers. And that was why I said, yes, I know there's a financial challenge, but I'm still going to come over and tell them and what we need. If this church cannot support financially, that's good, but what is very important to us right now is your prayers, because your prayers goes far to do wonders. Your prayers goes far to do miracles, and we need your prayers right now. And the Lord will continue to bless us all in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.